Welcome to the CFS Recovery Podcast, your companion on the journey to healing and thriving. Join our incredible team of coaches who have all been where you are now. In each episode, we'll share insights, tips, and real-life stories to inspire, support, and guide you. You'll hear stories from those who have made remarkable progress, reminding you that recovery is possible and you around the corner. Stay with us, take a deep breath, and let's walk this path to recovery one step at a time.
All right. Welcome everybody to the CFS Recovery Podcast. My name is Junior. I hope you are doing well today. And if you are currently in a flare up, then I hope you are responding well today. Okay. Some really good topics that we've been talking about recently on our integrations and fundamentals calls. And a question that I'm noticing is coming up more often these days is the topic and questions around people pleasing specifically. Okay. So people pleasing, people pleasing, people pleasing. Now, let's go ahead and have that conversation about people pleasing and a little bit about my perspective towards it all. Okay. So, first, before we can really dive into the topic of people pleasing, let's go ahead and define first what people pleasing is. So, if you go online, a quick Google search is all it takes, and it tells me that a people pleaser is a person who consistently strives to please others, and more often than not, sacrificing their own wants and needs in the process. These are people who don't necessarily prioritize themselves or their own mental health well being. Okay. Most people want to feel loved and valued, especially in these close relationships. And this is the definition as defined by Medical News Today, if you do a quick Google search on that. So now that we have more so of a general definition of what a people pleaser is, let's dig into it in a little bit of a deeper level, right? Let's talk about what the online community likes to kind of point the root to as one of the possible causes for being a people pleaser. Now, one of the reasons I've heard is that people pleasing is secretly a more something that's more selfish and manipulative in nature, and that the reason we people please is actually rooted in wanting people to like us. It's about more so us than it actually is about the people that we are quote unquote pleasing, right? And protecting our own self image on how people feel about us or perceive us. And in all fairness, that could very well be one of the real reasons as to why people could behave this way. But here's my opinion on this. Okay. And I'll explain a little bit into why I have this opinion. And how I feel about it is that it's not the only reason people actually behave this way. Okay. So another reason could be a bit more deep rooted in nature. It could also be a survival behavior. It could be a survival mechanism because not all the time, at least from what I've seen and from what I've experienced, does it have to be selfish or manipulative in nature to why people pleasers do the things they do. And let me go ahead and give you an example of an experience in the form of a story. Okay. So let's just name a little boy called Jimmy, just for example, hypothetical story here. Okay. We see that Jimmy kind of grows up in a little bit of an abusive household, grows up in a household where saying no is not really an option. So let's say Jimmy comes home because he has a hard day at school, right? And all he wants to do is come home and relax. But there's dishes in the sink or something. Okay. And then you have dad coming into the kitchen and saying, Jimmy, go ahead and wash those dishes. They're waiting for you. With the dad not really asking how Jimmy's doing after a long day of school. He just wants the dishes done. And the thing is, Jimmy could say no, but there probably has been past experiences where if he did say no, then his dad would be like, "What did you just say to me, boy?" And then, pulls out the belt and then starts giving out the whippings, right? And so, what happens in moments of adolescence like that, where we have situations where we're met with punishment or we're met with a less than ideal response to the people who tell us no? What we're going to do in an attempt to protect our own safety and what we're going to do in an attempt to make sure that we don't receive whippings via the belt is we will teach ourselves to say yes, but more importantly, not only do we teach ourselves to say yes, but the word yes is now associated with a sense of safety. And the word no, or the words I don't feel like it right now, are more so tied to a sense of danger. So it runs deeper in this type of situation because literally saying no to people, disappointing people, letting people down is met with a literal danger response in some people's cases, right? So that's why I said, sometimes it's not about selfishness or manipulation. It could be in, with some people that I've talked to, yeah, absolutely. That's a potential possibility. But it could also be that other reason of establishing a sense of safety. And, people who associate the word yes with safety and associate the word no with danger. Okay. So that's what I'm saying when I say I have a little bit of a different opinion, that I don't think it's so one sided, actually, to where it's only a selfish act, right? In terms of people pleasing. So the folks online, and the folks who have other podcasts who are just preaching that one angle, saying, people pleasing is a selfish act. People pleasing can also be potentially a protective act in nature as well. And it totally depends on the context of the situation. Like, for example, if we have the story about little Jimmy, um, totally different as opposed to if we have somebody else who didn't have that background, right? And so I think we can take the conversation a little bit deeper because now that we know what a people pleaser is, and also, we have much more awareness on why we are the way we are in terms of our people pleasing behaviors. We have to still understand that these are still cognitive explanations to all these things, right? And I heard somebody say online recently, you could understand everything there is to understand about the nervous system. You could know all your traumas. You can know every single reason as to why your personality is the way it is. You could even know all the cognitive solutions to them and still have a dysregulated nervous system. Because at the end of the day, you cannot think and understand your way out of a condition that makes you feel your feelings. Okay. And I feel like that's really important. Like, understanding why a people pleaser is the way they are doesn't actually necessarily help them change. They just now understand and are aware that of why the reasons they are the way they are. Um, does that help them heal in any capacity? In my opinion, no, not really. It just helps you understand. And great, you have a little bit more clarity. You're still a people pleaser, though, at the end of the day, right? So these are still the cognitive solutions to these things. And the thing is, the question now becomes, how do we change this though? Right? That's the main word, is the how. And I think what's really important is, number one, understanding that, okay, well, let me lay it out like this. Okay. I'm gonna give you guys a list of emotions, and I want you guys to understand that The following list of emotions that I'm about to list out are natural, normal emotions and should be perceived as okay to feel, right? And sometimes these emotions often include disappointing people in some moments in your life, right? Or letting people down or letting someone down, or maybe feeling a little bit of that guilt or a little bit of that sadness. Because let me tell you what, just in my experience as a coach, almost every single people pleaser I've ever met in my life, they were not okay with disappointing people, right? They weren't okay with letting someone down. They weren't okay with feeling that emotion of guilt. Or maybe they weren't okay with feeling that sadness sometimes of letting somebody down or disappointing someone. And I think the conversation should really be shining a light on learning to allow yourself to feel these emotions, and most importantly, and I think this is really, really important here. This thing, let's learn to normalize the idea that there are going to be moments in your life where you're going to disappoint people. And that's okay, right? That you let someone down. And that's all right. And maybe you'll feel guilty in some moments. That's okay. And that you will feel that sadness. And I'm not saying normalizing you doing all of that all the time, because that's black and white behavior, which is how we talk about is something that dysregulates the nervous system, but more so just learning to normalize the idea that it's okay to have some moments of that in your life. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't make you a bad person because you let someone down or because you disappoint people or because you feel guilty, because there's probably plenty of moments where you don't let people down. If anything, since you're listening to this podcast and are interested in the people pleasing topic, if anything, you rarely let people down, right? You help people maybe a little too often. You show up for people a little bit too often, even more so at the expense of your own health and well being. Okay. So let's normalize the idea that it's okay to have moments in your life where you feel like you're going to disappoint someone or letting someone down or feeling that guilt or feeling that sadness. Like I said, it doesn't make you a bad person. If anything, it actually makes you a balanced person, to be honest. Okay. So let's kind of move into the how of how we can really move the needle into the other direction by practicing these things. Okay. So when I say practice, let's practice putting yourselves first and prioritizing you, really, and your health. And when the moment arises at some point in your life, because it will, where someone asks of something of you, and you don't want to do it, or you can't do it because you don't have the capacity, or you're in an adjustment period, whatever it is, right? Whether it's a favor, whatever. Allow yourself for once to kindly say, no, I'm not going to do that, right? No, I'm not going to do it. Not anymore. We have to practice saying no to things that we don't want to do. And for some of us, like little Jimmy, it can be much harder than for others because, like we talked about in the past, for little Jimmy, saying no meant punishment. Saying no meant getting the belt. Saying no meant really negative repercussions. That word no is now associated and intertwined with the feeling of danger, right? So, what's going to happen if little Jimmy grows up into an adult who has taught himself that the word no and letting people down is literally a dangerous act. What's going to take place? How does little Jimmy really get out of that? Okay. Well, here's what's going to happen. So let's rewind a little bit and talk about this, okay? So practicing putting yourself first and prioritizing you and your health. And when the moment comes up, if somebody asks you to do something like a favor and you don't want to do it or you can't do it, Jimmy's going to say no, right? I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. And these feelings are going to start coming to the surface quite quickly. It's going to be an automatic response. And what I need Jimmy to do, what I need you to do, really, is I need you to allow these feelings to well up inside and rush up to the surface. Okay. That's not comfortable, but it's necessary. I need those feelings to well up to the surface and rush up. And you need to feel those feelings in its entirety. Feel that discomfort and even that sense of unsafety when those feelings come up in its entirety. The most important part is whilst you're feeling these things rush up, learning to be okay with that and understanding that those feelings are normal and you're allowed to feel those feelings. Okay. It's okay to feel those feelings. Like I said, let's start to normalize the idea of how we perceive disappointing people, letting someone down, guilt, sadness. These are feelings that can make people either uncomfortable or maybe even taken to an extreme, like little Jimmy can make people feel unsafe. So let's take something that was once perceived as unsafe or uncomfortable or whatever it is and really change the meaning of those emotions to something that is normal, something that is necessary, is something that is a part of life, an emotion that doesn't have to be avoided or rejected. And that takes some practice. I understand that. It took me, couple years to really start gaining some momentum in this trait because if this is a really deep rooted, deep seated trait, the one of people pleasing, especially if you did it leaning towards more of that safety aspect of it, yeah, it takes a little bit of time for sure. Um, with practice, okay? With consistency. But trust me when I say it's worth it in the end. That's something that I can promise. Because if you take a look at me, if you guys are on the group calls, which I know you are, both the fundamentals and the integrations calls, I get a lot of comments and I get a lot of feedback telling me that they really appreciate myself and the rest of the coaches being able to be balanced individuals. Because if a personality comes off imbalanced, it actually almost even comes off as untrustworthy. Imagine if you had a coach that was nice to you 24/7 or nice to everyone 24/7 on a call and always gentle and always supportive and never firm, right? They only had just one personality of positivity all the time on every single call. I wouldn't trust that person. Would you? I don't think so, to be honest, because that comes off as disingenuous, right? And that's the same thing for people pleasing, right? It's ironic because people pleasers really want people to like them, so they'll do and say anything to avoid that discomfort, just to elicit feelings in them and, try to really garner that sense of safety. But funny enough, it backfires on these individuals because now, they never know how to say no. They never know how to be firm. They never know how to speak their mind. They actually come off as untrustworthy fake people, which is wild, right? Because that's probably the last thing a people pleaser is trying to be perceived as, right? But those things, yeah, if taken to a black and white extreme, it can backfire on you. So even for me, like nowadays, because I'm much more balanced, like I said, if you guys see me on the calls, right? I'm firm to people that I need to be firm to. Okay. I'm not sunshines and rainbows all the time. I do put my foot down if I need to call somebody out, and I have no problem with that. Okay. I can have moments where I'm very, very serious and moments where I'm passionate about topics that I take very seriously. But I have that other side of me as well, where I am a lot more chill, where I am a lot more relaxed and toned down in nature too. That's the whole package right there. That's an entire whole personality. And same thing with people pleasers. If you are a person that is people pleasy in nature, I know at least personally for me, this is just my perspective. I'm not going to grow around a people pleasing person. And I'll tell you why. The only time I usually grow in my life is when I'm surrounded by people who are actually able to challenge my beliefs, people who are able to give me constructive feedback, people who are able to tell me the things that I'm doing wrong or give me feedback on things that I could do better to get to the next level. Do you notice all of those traits that I like being around that allows me to grow? People pleasers don't have those traits. They're not going to call me out when they need to. They're not going to be firm with me and sit me down and have uncomfortable conversations with me if they need to. They're not going to tell me the truth, even though it hurts sometimes when they need to, because they're too busy telling me yes. They're too busy making me feel comfortable. They're too busy making sure that all is well in the world. And that's why I say, at least for me nowadays, I try not to surround myself too much with people pleasing people, tongue twister again, because they're actually not helping me grow at all. So I actually like people who are less people pleasing because it helps me also grow too. So it's an even and fair exchange there as well. Okay. And I think it's really important to be well rounded in that sense. Um, I'm not saying that, ever since I've recovered, I just say no to everybody all the time and I prioritize myself 100% of the time. Absolutely not. There's a gray area too. There are moments in my life where I do go out of my way to help some individuals who I feel like deserve it. There are moments in life where I do prioritize myself as well, but it's not me just saying no, 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 no to everybody. It's me, 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 me all the time. There's a gray area. There's a 50-50 split where I help the ones that I feel like deserve it. I help the ones that I want to, but at the same time, I also help myself. Whereas compared to before, I never really did that. I'm going to be honest with you. I never really helped myself. My people pleasing came a lot from a place of insecurity, wanting people to like me. But that actually started off way back into adolescence, where, shocker, when we talk about the story of Jimmy, that's me, actually. I was Jimmy. I used people pleasing to get on people's good side so I didn't have to suffer like repercussions from that or punishment, because I did, create that link of saying no means punishment, saying no means danger or, whatever it was, right? So that's something that that was taught to me that I brought into adulthood that actually did a disservice to me in adulthood. I've actually lost friends in adulthood because I was too people pleasy, because I went out of my way to help people, because there's real repercussions in life for being too people pleasy. Because if you make it a habit to do this and it follows you into an adulthood, then you make it a habit essentially to go out of your way to be nice, to help everybody 150%. Guess what happens as a repercussion to that? You start to expect that out of other people as well. And when that's not reciprocated, because let's just be honest here, most of the time it won't be reciprocated, especially if you have regulated friends around you or people with regulated nervous systems around you. No one is going to reciprocate you constantly going out of your way 150% just so you get on their good side and you stay on their good side. People with regulated nervous systems don't take it to that 150%. So oftentimes, sometimes what I'll see is a people pleaser will adopt this personality and this way of being, and then they'll make a friend, and then they'll go out of their way and do things 150%. And then when it's not reciprocated by the other person, because that's not how they act, because they have a regulated nervous system, the people pleaser will say, that person doesn't care about me as much as I care about them. And little do they realize, because the awareness is not high enough, that your friend is not the red flag. Your friend is actually the regulated one that prioritizes themselves first in a healthy way, in which you've defined that friend as selfish, but they weren't actually selfish at all. They were actually acting in a regulated way. And it's a tough pill to swallow when you come to the realization that your friend wasn't the red flag. If you are the people pleaser in the relationship and you have issues with other people not doing or showing up as much for you as you do for them, you are the red flag. Okay. That's a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow, including myself, right? That's not something that's easy to hear. And the reason I'm telling you this is because you need to hear it. Even if it hurts a little bit or if it stings a little bit, you're watching me practice not being a people pleaser in real time, telling you not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. Okay. And that echoes into our coaching work too. Imagine if you had a coach that only told you what you wanted to hear and never what you needed to hear. Imagine if you had a coach that was never firm with you or, never gave you some harsh truths every now and then to get you to the next level. Because if that's the case, you don't have a coach that genuinely cares about you. You have a coach that cares about themselves, right? And if that's the case, you need to find a new coach, right? Because at the end of the day, ask people who I've coached behind the scenes. Um, I can be kind, I can be sweet, but when it's time to turn it up a notch and give someone some harsh truths or a reality check or something that they need to hear to get them to the next level, it's not because I'm being mean, it's and not anything malicious or anything like that, but it's me taking myself out of the equation, prioritizing them and what they need, even if it means being a little bit harsh, honest, or a little bit firm if that's what they need in that moment, right? Because if that's the exchange there, then it's my job to be helping you. And trust me when I say you would much rather have a coach that makes you uncomfortable, even when they give you feedback, which allows you to grow, than a coach that makes you comfortable, only tells you what you want to hear. And then 1 or 2 years down the road, you wonder, I've been working with this coach for the longest time. Why am I not making any progress? Right? Has that coach ever challenged you? Right? Has that coach ever done anything for you to expose a harsh truth or maybe have an uncomfortable situation to pivot your recovery in the right direction, even though sometimes it hurts? And it doesn't even just have to be a coach. Really bad things? Are those people really bad people, or are those people um, people who will actually help you grow and move forward and are challenging you a little bit? And we're learning to regulate our nervous systems and see challenge not as something as a threat, not to see constructive criticism as something more so as a threat, but more so something that'll help you grow moving forward. Okay. And the more the people pleaser in you dies, the more you'll actually resonate with people who challenge you and make you uncomfortable and force you to grow. But the more people pleasy that you are, what you're going to do as a direct byproduct of that, you're going to surround yourself with other people that make you feel good, um, and kind of cushion yourself from the outside world so you don't have to hear harsh truths. And that's fine. You can choose to go down that path. Just trust and understand that you're never going to grow in that type of situation. That's my topic here on people pleasing. I don't know if you guys can hear my dog barking in the background, but it's raining. And for whatever reason, he likes to sit right here, right next to me, and then do like the loudest squeal ever. But again, my dog's also my teacher because he allows me to practice patience too. But yeah, I hope you guys got something out of this episode on people pleasing. I know this is something that would have helped me a lot when I was recovering. So this is just me echoing that information out to you. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of the CFS Recovery Podcast. Again, my name is Junior. I hope you guys are doing great. And if you are in a flare up, continue to respond well. Kick butt. I know you guys got this. right? Take care of yourselves. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. You guys have been great. I'll see you guys next time. All right. Excellent. Peace.